Guys, stop fucking feeling stuff. Also, isn't she getting angry at them?
Which is an emotion.
Yeah, it's all hypocrisy. Oh wait, is he in love with her? I have to fucking change that on the board. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Stoneface Reactions. I'm Theta, this is Ray.
Hello guys, how you doing?
And of course, you check him out over on Art Nights. There should be a link below in the description. We are back from the first 3 episodes. And of course, anyone who's been on this channel before knows it means I've come back with notes on a board. And as per the normal thing, we'll start with the board. And normally, we would have a board change log where I would indicate what I have changed on the board. But the first board, I never do that for because that would be taking forever to do. So in this case, I do actually have just a couple of notes to indicate some thoughts that I had while I was making the board. One is that I suspect Cashew is maybe the king of Canaan, but since it's just a guess, I didn't mark it.
Okay.
I don't recall Woodchuck saying where he's from, so I also have him in the unknown. Deedlit was in Venice when we met her, but I don't know if that means she's from there, so I also put her in the unknown. And similarly, Gim and his associates from before he approaches the village, not sure if they were in Venice or not.
Okay.
But yes.
Right, I'm trying to understand your...
Well, that's why
board.
I have the key over here.
Yeah, I'm looking at that as well.
Because remember, it's not just you having to understand it, it's a viewer having to understand it, so hopefully everything comes across.
Is that affecting you? Because I'm moving it around.
No. It's entirely your side related.
All right. All right, so you color coded this one there for... Okay, I see it now. Okay. Let's see, we have one unknown and one unknown. Okay. I think Kim... Didn't it make it clear that he was from that temple? I was remembering the name of that temple. Yeah.
He called her priest. Oh, look, I understand what you're trying to do. It's like, oh, did I give a spoiler there? It's like, she's a priestess. I don't think it's a stretch to say that she might have been at a temple. They don't call it a temple, though. And they have no indication of where they're from, or where they're at, rather.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Because I thought they mentioned, but they may have, but I might be wrong. I don't know. Because they did show them at a temple talking to each other, so I remember that.
Yeah. Well, again, they don't call it a temple, but they do refer to her as a priestess, so I don't think it's a stretch to say it might have been a temple. Obviously, you know.
It looked like a temple. It looked like a temple. So, yeah, you might be wrong. I might be wrong. It could have been a castle. It may not have been a temple.
But they don't indicate where it's at, is my point. Is that I don't know where they're from, because also they're travelers. Gim is anyway. Same for Deedlit. I don't know if Deedlit is from the forest in Venice where we saw her, or that's just a place she was traveling through.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know that for sure. But we do know. Don't we know the... Hold on, let's see here. Yeah, we got everybody else. We know Slane. We know... Yeah, okay. Everything else seems to be okay.
Like I said, the one that I suspect would be, of course, Cashew. I think he's the king of Canaan, but they don't say. They just call him king.
Okay. All right, cool. That looks interesting. I like your board. I'm going to have to copy your technique here.
Right. Can't wait to see that in the next Battlestar Galactica. Hey, guys, look what I did.
I'm gonna get yelled at. Like, no, that's not what it is.
I mean, yeah.
That's a spoiler, Ray.
I mean, that's why I had this is what I suspect things. I try to keep the board to exactly what we know. And then in my notes, I'll talk about what I think is happening.
No, but it helps me keep an eye out in case they do mention it where I could pop it out. So that's very helpful.
Well, yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier when you were saying the notes are helpful for names and whatnot. Well, yeah, if I have a problem remembering who somebody is, I got a face and a name. That's where this comes from. The fact that I'm watching like 15 series at a time. I really need help, yeah. Especially it's also typically for me, it's Japanese names. How many Sakuras I'm going to have to remember?
I don't think I can do what you do. It is a lot of names.
You do what I do, and more
No, but not
successfully
the
at
way
that.
you do it. You do well. Listen, it was luck, if anything, to be honest. But in your case, the amount of characters you deal with on a regular basis definitely multiplies the amount I do. We stick to like 1 or 2 shows.
You never
and go
know.
there.
You never know. Because if I ask a certain people in the street, like how many characters are in the record of Lodoss War, I'm certain that they would probably say about as many as I have on the board total. And this is just the first 3 episodes.
But wait a minute, though. But think about it. How many shows on a weekly basis? How many TV episodes? I mean, how many anime episodes would you say you consume on a weekly basis?
That's what I'm saying. 15. It's either
15.
Probably now. No, I think it's still 15.
So that's 15 different shows you watch. Jesus Christ, that's a lot of shows. Don't get me wrong. I probably do it, but I just don't do it. I just don't react to them. But of the 15 shows I watch, maybe 2 shows I'm reacting to. What you're watching
Actually,
is the
no.
amount of.
Sorry, it's not 15. I'm sorry. I wrote 15 episodes, not 15 different shows. I just realized 13.
That's impressive, and you still keeping track of that. You got boards going on. Honestly, you putting in a good amount of work, and it's quite impressive. You're doing definitely a lot more than I do. I have my notes. My notes are very simple. Definitely not as elaborate as your notes. Mine's a simple PowerPoint with a couple names on them.
You haven't heard my notes. My notes could be like a bunch of 1-sentence things. You could be real disappointed when I get to my notes. I'm just saying, don't prop me up just for me to fall down.
But if I was doing 13 different shows, I can see how helpful this is. If I was someone who's analyzing the amount that you do and the feedback you give, this is so helpful, So, you share this also with your Patreon?
You know where this comes from? Yeah, the Patreon link is down below. Thank you for the for the salesmanship.
No, that's true.
No, where this comes from is the element is when I lost my first co-host, right? Because he went off to do his real life stuff, and I was like, oh shit, I'm not entertaining. What can I prop this up with?
Really? Well, listen, I think it is quite impressive. Definitely a lot better than me, because this was in his 3 shows. This is definitely a couple hours of work. That's what I think. Maybe you've been doing it for a while, so you probably knocked it out in 15 minutes, knowing you was your skills.
All right, well, that is the board, and of course, if it's your first time on the channel, the link will be down below so that you can look at it directly, so you don't have to the little screen area we have here for it. All right, well, that was the board. As I said, I come back with my notes, so getting into that, and of course, as I said, this is a discussion area, so interject as you will. If you have any thoughts that occur to you in the midst of it, toss it out there. All right, so a correction to something we talked about during episode 2, namely which came first. The first thing to be released was a novel series of the D&D sessions that inspired everything, called Record of the Lodoss War RPG Replay in 1986. After that was an actual novel series in 1988. Then the anime comes out in 1990, after which different manga begin getting published starting in 1991.
So manga was published after the anime. Right. And the book, and there were books before then. That's interesting, So that means there must have been a big push. Like the story must have been great, at least feeling the way they felt back in the 80s, to push it out. That's like a 2 or 3 year process to get books, the anime, and then manga out within 3 years. That's a lot.
Well, it was we had 1986 for the RPG Replay, 86. Which again is just, I guess, a retelling of, hey, this is what happened at our table, which, might not have been a huge market for in Japan at the time. Because you got to think that these only got localized some many years later after the fact in English-speaking countries and whatnot. So the element at play is, hey, here's a thing that we talked about, a story that we made, and then 2 years later they make an actual novel, which is not a, hey, listen to a story we told each other, and more of a, hey, here's a story. And then 2 years after that was so good, let's make that into an anime.
Yeah, and as you see it, it reminds me a lot of, like, the story setup itself reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you ever read any Dragonlance books back in the day.
No.
But the original stories and whatnot, it really does have an 80s D&D feel to it, is what I'm trying to say.
All right,
I don't know who will bite,
That was the first note. I've got more.
Okay.
So essentially, the creation mythos only revolves around the creation of the island Lodoss itself, which is to say that the armies of light and dark gathered under their gods and fought until there was only the goddess of creation and destruction left. And their battle split the land. Essentially, the visual motif we see in the animation of them breaking the mountains in half with each weapons clash until Lodoss was born of it. And this was, of course, thousands of years ago.
Now, that was a war between the gods, right?
Yep, I even have it represented on the board.
Now, were men involved in that as well, or it's just a? The reason I'm asking because I know they mentioned a lot the original six.
The original six. Oh, you mean the original 6 heroes?
Yeah, the original 6 heroes.
They have not mentioned them a lot. They have mentioned it once.
Well, I was wondering if they somehow, whatever they did was, I was confused it was during that time, and if that's the case, like there must be thousands of years old, so it can't be that. So being those 6 original heroes has to be something else, which, okay.
I'm pretty sure it involved all the races, considering they made a big old mural about it.
Yeah, but I'm saying those heroes, like, I don't think if you were a man back then, or you were human or elves or anything like back then in that battle 1,000 years ago, you're probably not alive today.
No clue.
Yeah.
No clue how long elves and dwarves live.
But the king, Marmo, was it Marmo or the other guy?
One Marmo of them mentioned, is the name of a country.
Not Marmo. It was the king of Marmo. I believe he's one of the. Well, you know what? Let's go. Before I say that might be spoiler, let me be quiet.
King Fawn. No, sorry. Well, my problem is you're saying King Marmo.
King
Marmo has an emperor. So
yeah.
I don't know if you're talking about the emperor of Marmo, or are you talking about the king of the good country of which we're leaving?
I believe it is the Dark Emperor and the Farn, the King Farn, I believe.
Fawn.
Yeah, Fawn. I believe
Valis.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about Cashew, but I believe they were. But the thing, I was confusing it, thinking that they were part of that original battle that made the record of the Lodoss War, but that wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, no. So I mean, he does look 1,000 years old, but I don't think he is.
Yeah, and if he's human, I doubt that he's 1,000 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume he's human. Yeah, no, I don't believe any of these characters have anything to do with that. Because even the old adventurers, well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know their backstory enough to have any clue into that.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the original 6. What did they do? Well, and why they're considered the original 6. I don't remember. I really don't.
They haven't alluded to it yet. They haven't told us anything. We only know 2 members of that party. So
yeah, and I was trying to fit in the blocks on if they were part of that party, but that was a dumb assumption. It wouldn't make sense.
Well,
all right.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have any thoughts until you put them out there, right?
Yep.
To be fair, there's something I've said multiple times to multiple other hosts on the channel is say the obvious stuff out loud, because if you don't, the audience doesn't know that you know it. This is just a sentence because I keep these notes, so this is here to remind me. Lodoss is an island south of the continent Alicrest, the accursed island. So, in the prologue, which is oddly also set in the future of the events of episode 2 and 3, they gotta go through the dwarf tunnel to get to Wart's place, and they are in a hurry. The dwarf tunnel was known as a place where you could buy dwarven goods at a fair price, but our dwarf buddy says that was a long time ago, which confuses me a bit, as the shorter-lived races in the group are talking about it as though it's something you could have done in their lifetime, while the dwarf says it was a long time ago and displays how brittle the stonework is, implying, along with everything else here, that it was a long time ago. No thoughts about that?
No, if anything, it gives me a lot of it feels a lot like that was very similar to the very same scene of the Mines of Moria.
Yeah,
in that sense, they're rushing right. They have to get through and whatever. But I don't know. I mean, it's a long time ago, I'm gonna assume that had to do with the dragon taking over, and what is a long time ago, depending on who we're talking to at this point. And it being the dwarf, was he saying a long time ago because he's talking to human people?
But my problem is that the stonework is also so brittle, implying the stone is indicating to us that it was a long time ago. But it's also the element that they're saying is, word is, you used to be able to buy dwarven goods here at a good price. Whose word is that? Because you're of human age, and the dwarf is saying it was a long time ago.
I mean, unless you're assuming that came from, conversation at a tavern or something like that. Maybe it's just lore. Because if that place exists, they probably know it exists, and people were just making up lores to it or whatever, of back then. I wouldn't think, just by looking at what we saw, a long time ago had to be at least 100 or more years ago. And it's not, so these kids, these people who are bringing it up, if they were not alive then, they have to be hearsay that they heard, again, through some type of, there's no way that was.
Well, that's what I'm indicating towards the element of it being lore. But at the same time, it's two variable definitions of a long time ago, right? If, say your grandpa walked into the room all of a sudden, don't be scared. Say your grandpa walked into the room all of a sudden and said a long time ago, and then your daughter walked into the room and said a long time ago, you would have different conceptions of what a long time ago means.
Which is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking maybe Gim said it in a way where he was referring, and for them to understand what a long time ago meant to them. Maybe he was doing it that way, but what you're saying makes a lot of sense because, like, to me, if a kid comes up to me and tells me, oh, something that happened 10 years ago, to them was like, oh, a long time ago. Like, 10 years ago, it was yesterday to me, So, again,
okay, the example here then, it'd be like if your daughter walked in the room and said, word is down the street, you can buy such and such for a cheap price. And then your dad walked in the room and said, yeah, that place down the road has been destroyed for a long time. And you'd be asking, where the hell did your daughter hear that you could buy stuff there?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. It's the order of things just feels off somewhere. But again, I assume we're going to get there later because it happens in the future of where we're at.
And I wonder if the prologue episode was, I don't know, because it was a weird episode.
They're rushing to do a thing. So we haven't gotten into a situation yet where we need to rush to do a thing. So I'm assuming that's where it's gonna come. Yeah.
And it might come up again. Maybe this Dwarven Kingdom will come up again, or this Dwarven place.
I mean, it has to. We have to get to work at some point.
No, but I mean, like in a separate conversation, not us watching it, but maybe in a different conversation it might come up.
Yeah. I mean, not if they're pulling a Moria. We only learn about Moria when we get to Moria.
Yeah.
All right, next up. So clearly this is a world where elves and dwarves are stereotypically racists against one another. Even before we get there, arguing at the 7-minute mark of the first episode, at the very start when they are all outside in the rain, about to enter the place, all standing there and looking at it, the elf is the one that stands back and doesn't immediately move to enter when everybody else does, stealing herself a bit longer before pressing forwards, a visual indicator that the animosity runs a bit deeper than just the words we get moments later.
You think so? You think she did that because of the animosity? I thought she did because, remember, she's a forest person. And going into a cave or on the ground, that might be new to her.
Yeah, but they're not at it yet. I would assume that stealing moment would come, when they're walking past the threshold. But this is just, that's a dwarven ruin. In the distance. My memory of it is that she's stealing herself as everyone has just had a conversation about it.
I might have to see that one part again. I don't know. I don't think I agree with it being an animosity towards the dwarves. I don't think so. I really do think what I said earlier, and again, that's not clear in the episode, but it can go either way for me.
The episode does weird things to try and tell us about the characters in certain ways. They go back and forth with the dwarf elf thing a lot. And then, Gim's like, you guys just don't understand people with skills. And it's like, okay, well, this is a weird thing to be doing now. Like, the fact that it's in the future, you'd think they would have worked through this already.
No, that's true. That's true. But again, I don't understand sometimes the why they did the first episode the way they did, because it's confusing in many ways. Like you said, those things they should have hashed out, but they kind of didn't. So it kind of felt like maybe they was trying to do an intro to the characters in a way, and that's what you might be looking into. The first 3 episodes we haven't really seen much of that as we did in the first episode, I think.
Well, I mean, here, my next note also covers this same thing. Somewhat odd considering how things go in episodes 2 and 3, but Parn, seeing the elf and dwarf fight, tells them that he doesn't care and they can leave for all he cares. That seems opposed to both the relationships they've already started to establish past the prologue and what little character development we've gotten from Parn so far.
Well, I will say that Parn, at least in the beginning, he's reckless. Like he not just with his acts, but he can be reckless with his own words. He's young. Apparently, we know that there is a tragedy. Maybe a tragedy. I don't know if his father was killed or he ran away. Whatever.
We know. You can look at the board and see that Parn's father's on the board,
but we don't know if there was something that was. He's coming across. At least the villagers were saying that his father was a coward.
You know what I mean? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna skip a couple of notes ahead because I literally have a note about him. Theseus, Parn's father, was a knight of King Fon. The king says, "I never cursed my position as much as I did that time," which makes me think, given common storytelling tropes, that Fon was forced, due to his position, to judge Theseus guilty of a crime, possibly as a scapegoat, for something Theseus may or may not have done, like something that couldn't be made public, or something to protect someone else. So Theseus's name becomes shameful due to an act of heroism that will need to be uncovered later in the story. Zacht says he broke the kingdom's laws and was cast out from the Holy Order of Knights.
Which is what I think is fueling the rashfulness of Parn. Like there seems to be some type of anger he has in him, and I think he's trying to either redeem his father or trying to prove something was himself that maybe, I don't know. There's something about him and his father that I think is the reason why he acts the way he acts.
Well, okay, 2 things here. One, the impetus of my note is more so towards the element he says, "You can leave if you want, I don't care," which is against the relationship building that Parn's doing in episode 2 and 3. As towards the father element that you're bringing up.
No, but the reason I'm saying that is because I think he's still young and he has those teen angst.
Sure, but I feel like, okay, benefit of the doubt, something has to happen from where we left Parn to this Parn to become that guy. Because Parn, as he is right now, is not that guy.
Correct.
Parn wouldn't tell any of these people, "Leave, I don't care." Well, maybe Woodchuck.
No, Woodchuck for sure.
Well, just Woodchuck is a thief, and he has no real connection to Woodchuck other than he saved Woodchuck from being burned or crushed to death or getting killed by a Marmo army dude. I don't know what to call the Marmo army. It's an army of monsters.
Yeah, from Marmo. Are they from Marmo?
The monsters.
Well, I know what they're fighting for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have a note later about Marmo's army, so I'm not specifically into that just yet, but I don't know if what do you call a soldier if it's just like a ragtag bunch of monsters?
Maybe mercenary group? I don't know. I don't even know if I'm a mercenary. I'm going to assume he's paying them, because why would they join them? Unless they're under control. Well, they were. Remember the first things were under control.
Yeah, but they were under. Well, I don't know. I don't know if the impetus is that there was a dark elf somewhere in the area, or if that kobold. No, yeah, were they kobolds or were they goblins? They were goblins. If the goblin was a warlock or something, I don't know.
Well, the witch she made an appearance. I wonder if she has anything to do with that.
She only appears
Well,
in
yeah, that
episode
happened too. But I
prologue,
wonder,
which is in the
yeah,
future, and then episode 3, which is in the
yeah,
past of the prologue.
yeah. I could have.
But no, the goblins weren't under mind control until after they had the meeting with the boss goblin, and I don't know if the boss goblin did it or if it's just a same way that the kobolds had the dark elf in the background who also had magic. That maybe there's something we didn't see. But I don't think the entire army is mind controlled because it looks like the goblins that were mind controlled had a visual eye thing going on.
Yeah, but it does bring a point that how are they convincing? Because it wasn't like one race; it's like different races of monsters that we saw there.
Strength. I mean, maybe it's a
You know?
might makes right situation.
Yeah, that could be.
Monsters
It
might
could
just
be.
have a different, not moral code. You know,
I doubt the moral code.
hierarchical code. Like,
Well,
killed
well,
my boss, now you're my boss.
Either that or they getting something major out of it. You know, like you help us out, and we'll make sure this cut of land you guys can be there.
There's also the question of how intelligent are these monster races.
That's a big point too.
I mean, I don't want to be fantasy racist either, but I don't know. We need more exposition on them, I guess.
We do. Yeah, that's actually very interesting to think about. Why are they there? What's their benefit? If it's just there, if they're just there as an element of the anime without any explanation, that's kind of cheap.
Well, I mean, it's also an element now I'm thinking about this too, of if they're not from Marmo, is this a, hey, help us kill the humans and this land can be yours again?
Yeah, which is what goes back to what I said earlier. Maybe there was a deal involved that's going to benefit them to join them.
But it's like, how many of these fantasy races would understand that deal?
That's
so I'm also
issue.
thinking back to like Overlord, which also has a bunch of fantasy races, and then some of them are just not dumb enough to understand what's going on.
Yeah, but if you have a leader, all you need, honestly, you probably just need like 6-7 guys of those different races to understand to get everybody else in line. You know, they're probably there. Listen, if I kill, does that guarantee I'm gonna have food? So yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do what you say then. You know what I mean? It could be that simple to them.
Look, man, I'm still trapped on where's the boss goblin getting his clothes from? Because apparently it's some, like, there's a vendor out there somewhere, because I've seen 2 boss goblins wearing the same outfit and not the same guy, because we saw that guy got stabbed.
It's what's in vogue at the moment, you know, for the
not a bad
world.
Look. All right. The mage's the mage's magic casting is odd because essentially they are just prayers to the creators and invoking them to do this and that. It doesn't seem like a world where it's power from within expressed outwards, but rather power from without invoked. Even Deedlit's own magic works the same way. She invokes the spirit of light and the spirit of wind. Further still, the priest's magic is also prayer-based, though that's the expected one. I thought I had a note about it here, but the first time the mage casts his spell in episode 2, obviously not counting the prologue, he invokes the spirits inhabiting the bodies, the mind control people. So he also invokes spirits.
I wonder if that was a decision made in the anime and the books have something different. Because
I assume they're one for one with the books.
Yeah, because usually it is what we see, like what you mentioned earlier. The priest definitely talking to action from the gods or whatever. That makes sense. The elves, I mean, unless she's some type of ranger, or let's say not even a druid who's talking to spirits and whatnot in the forest, then maybe. But the wizard, the mage, that's the most.
Like I said, I think rangers and druids use the same magic system, don't they?
I think they do, but I don't think it necessarily have to be gods they're worshiping.
Well, it's still what I was saying before, power from within expressed outwards. The sorcerer, wizard, you know, the power comes from inside. You say stuff and express it outwards, versus, say, a warlock or a cleric. Your power is given to you from outside, and then you invoke it to do things. And it feels like here all magic is invoked.
But it's funny because the priest and Deedlit, right? Both of them, they don't seem to be exhausted when they cast their spells, but the wizard does.
Sometimes. I think when you're talking about the wizard being exhausted, you're talking about episode 2 and 3, where I think he's supposed to be new or unused to it. In episode 1, the prologue, he like casts a shield while he's falling through the air and then just runs off and he's still good. So
Yeah. But I'm saying, but still though, he's the only one to have that issue of being weak. So I wonder why that happens. Why if he's praying, everybody else is praying, what is being demanded of him that is not being demanded of others?
again, I think it's an element of he's new to it because Deedlit
Yeah.
is apparently experienced. That's what we get from her wandering through the woods, and she's already doing stuff. Our priest just got back from 4 years of training.
Yeah.
Our mage wizard guy has just been in the woods reading books.
Yeah, but that could still be some type of training and use. And we don't know how long he's been in the wood for. They don't make that clear. I mean,
I
it's
obviously
clear
have
that
no idea.
Yeah, well, okay. But it's interesting, though, because you kind of want to know exactly how magic works in the world. And it's leading to a bunch of questions. I think what Ito, right? Ito and the elf, what they do could be explained. What the wizard's doing, it's a new convention of what we thought what arcane normally is in this type of setting. Because usually it's almost like a science when it comes to wizards, right? They have to put in the right runes in there. They have to say the right word, the perfect gesture. Like it seems to it have to be precise magic. It don't seems to be like that here in this show. It's more like you said, a prayer, and then who is he praying to? Who's giving him that power?
I mean, I got another future note about the who they're praying to bit that doesn't make a lot of sense. Sorry, I had a thought about Slain there while you were talking, and then I can't remember what I was. Oh, the element that if I am right, that he's just getting more used to casting magic, which is why he goes from exhausted to not exhausted, then I expect it to be something that wouldn't be explained. Because it would just be an element of watching him in earlier episodes being tired, and then in later episodes not being tired. That he would just visually change over time, which wouldn't require explanation. I mean, granted, they could do the cheap thing. It's like, hey, Slain, you don't seem to be getting tired as much as you used to be. Yeah, getting used to it. It's a secular conversation.
Either that, or maybe the power of the spell he's trying to access may be. But even then, that shield against the dragon, right? That was a shield against the dragon. If anything should have exhausted him, it should have been that. Well, we'll see.
I mean, again, we're talking what, first edition D&D? Or AD&D, depending.
Mm.
All right. So Wart was one of the 6 heroes, according to Carla, that did battle in the depths of the labyrinth and fought the Demon King. Wart specifically vowing to protect her, despite Wart later mentioning that Carla was also a member of that party. At the same time, Carla's what's a body, a dress to be worn or discarded with time statement has the ring of someone being possessed by someone else, which would explain why she describes Wart as being a member of the party, as though she wasn't connected to it. An episode 1 guess would be one of the goddesses from the war, or even the Demon King themselves, or, something in the shiny circlet they keep pushing at the camera. She's definitely being possessed in my mind. That's not even a question.
Yeah, I have information on this that will be not with spoilers, and I don't want to.
Well, I anticipate she's final boss, so of course you'd remember how the show ends.
Yeah, and especially that storyline I do like, because I do know, and I don't want to spoil anything in that sense. But I will say that you got good notes, is all I'm going to say.
Well, I'm also anticipating. I didn't think about this while I was writing it, but it occurs to me that you may have been somewhat nudging me in that direction as well. With your, doesn't that circlet look like eyes?
Well, it did look like eyes, didn't it?
I don't remember now. I'm not zoomed in that far on my board either. It just occurred to me that I'm writing all this based on how she's talking and everything, and it's like, oh, she put on a cursed magic item. How very D&D of her. All right. So, character trait for Deedlit, beyond being uppity to a dwarf, is that she can't keep her hands off of shiny objects. She grabs the necklace in the ruins and tries it on, then grabs at some shiny object on the wall that turns out to be a trap. Funny enough, she completely forgets about it when she gets to the bottom of the trap, despite it just sitting there in the open to be taken, and yet her attention goes to the next shiny object in the room.
So you think that she's on the spectrum? Is what you're saying?
Well, I mean, she's a looter.
She's a looter.
Well, she's not actually. That's my point. Is that the shiny object she grabs on the wall that turns out to be a trap that drags her down into the dungeon?
Well, that's the
It's
thing,
sitting
because
there in the background, just laying on its side, and she doesn't even pay any attention to it anymore.
Usually, when you see elf being portrayed in these type of settings, you see like they seem to be more cautious or more wise for the most part. Even though sometimes they'll stand up, but they're kind of stuck up. In this case, she seems to be not stuck up. She seems to be feel free around everybody to be who she is without like she's different. Her portrayal of an elf is not your typical portrayal of an elf that you normally see. And that of her liking, she's someone, I won't say she's a kleptomaniac, but her liking certain things along the way it's not typical either of an elf.
Well, remember,
that's what you train to pass.
the very important thing to remember in all of this, I think, is that these were characters that people were playing.
Yeah.
So that she might not be the typical elf could also be the element of, oh, the person playing her was really greedy for loot.
Yeah.
I know we got Woodchuck, and Woodchuck is apparently a thief who's going to be greedy for loot. But I guess Woodchuck was a player that came in later because he gets introduced. Hey guys, I got a friend who wants to join the group. Okay, bring him on.
He seems to be more cautious than she is.
You say that, but we met him locked up. Not super cautious.
Well, at least in the cave, he was not doing what she was doing. You know, I didn't see him looking for loot or grabbing the first thing he sees.
No. Remember specifically, he falls off a cliff because he gets grabbed by a gargoyle. I went back over the scene a couple of times because I was confused because I heard somebody shouting the word wood. And it occurred to me later they were just shouting Woodchuck's first part of his name. But for a moment, I thought Slane was turning the gargoyle into wood. Like he was invoking wood to cushion his fall. And it's like, well, turning him into wood wouldn't cushion his fall either.
Gotcha.
Right.
Well, again, I really do. If that's the case, again, it could be like you said. Maybe it's just a byproduct of what the character was doing in the game.
Yeah. Well. All right. So Gim sets out to find or rescue Lelia, the daughter of the priestess Nice, who has been missing for 7 years. He says he's older now, implying that he used to do stuff like this before. Brammed, the dragon friend of Nice, also fears for Lelia, which I don't know what it takes for a dragon to fear for your safety, but there you go.
I do like that element, though. The idea that there's a dragon that it seems to be very loving and very caring is there. And it's considered like he was there to console the priestess on her child. I like that element that dragons are doing that. I mean, I just love dragons, period, especially if they can talk. But even that, if they're not talking, that sense of emotion, they're knowing that quiet wisdom, I do like their representation. As for Gim, I think Gim is not specifically looking for people as much as he's probably done a lot of side jobs and questing for the priestess.
It's not what I didn't mean to imply that Gim has done this before, as in looking for lost people. I meant been an adventurer in the past.
Okay, maybe that'll be funny though. He's that guy searching for the all missing people of the kingdom.
Oh yeah, I mean, he could be a bounty hunter. I don't know. I'm just saying that it seemed to me implied that he's an adventurer of the past who's now older and has doing this again.
And judging by his fighting style, he looks like he's been killing quite a few people. He probably has a resume of the amount of deaths he has on his belt.
Again, we don't know what he was doing before. Like, it wouldn't be beyond me to suspect, oh, maybe Gim was also a member of the Six. Like, I wouldn't know. It's just the element that he's older now is what he says. And I don't know how old dwarves get in this show.
Well, if they're going by D&D rules, if this was a D&D game and they go by those rules, then we can make an assumption that was maybe 500 years old, as old as a dwarf normally gets in the D&D world.
I mean, he could be an old dwarf, and Deela can be a young elf.
Yeah, could be. So, but if we go by those rules, and knowing that they did come from D&D, then we can make an assumption, I guess, in that, and at least in terms of their age.
All right. You think the goblins have purple/blue blood for being monsters or for censorship laws?
Probably censorship laws, especially back then. You know, dude, and you've lived through it as much as I have. That back in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of protests and congressional hearings, and this game is bad, that show is bad, this music is bad. It's probably, I would say so. I would say it's probably for censorship reasons.
I mean, I think you're indicating towards the era, and I wouldn't say that because there was plenty of blood in movies and everything back then.
But not animation,
in video games. Well, it depends on where the animation came from.
But I wouldn't be surprised.
I would indicate more towards what country these things come from. There's like a reason why a lot of old stuff, things have black blood because you can't have red blood.
I really think that it's probably a censorship thing.
Just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a good catch.
Ito has been gone for 4 years, which is interesting, but more so for me is the fact that he's a native of Phallus with the power to heal. Sorry, I mistyped all over this note. Sorry, no, actually I didn't mistype. I misread. He's a novate of Phallus. Sorry. When I was misreading it, I thought native of Valus. I've just misspelled Phallus, and no, he's a novate of Phallus with the power to heal. I say interesting because these people's own mythos say that Phallus fought and died. So essentially, they are praying to a god they themselves believe to be dead and still get powers from.
That's quite interesting, actually.
You know, now that I'm putting it together with a previous note that I didn't think about, and your weird way of saying that's quite interesting, actually, is that Phallus is alive and in the headdress. And it's the subversion of the show is to say that the good god is actually going to be the villain.
Well, I'm not saying that.
You're not, but you're really, really giving me a weird way of saying things.
No, I find it, no, listen, honestly, I do find it interesting because I didn't think of that. If he is a priest of a dead god, where is he getting that power from? Which, again, and I got to tell you, it's been a long time since I've seen this anime. And just like every other show, listen, if I see a show a year ago, I'm not going to remember every bit of it, to be honest.
Yeah, great backtracking speech.
I do find that quite interesting that that he is worshiping a dead god. He has that power. Not only that, but he also got them out of trouble in the second episode, right? Was it the second episode when they got him out of trouble? When they got locked up in the jail and they found out that he's a priest of?
That's third. That's the last one we watched.
So then there is a reverence to that god still around.
Well, I mean, yeah. I can see reverence because you can revere someone who's dead, but you don't typically get powers from somebody who's dead.
But I wonder, though, if there is something, because think about it. Supposedly, this god died thousands of years ago, right? So if that's the case, why is there still training or worshiping?
It occurs to me this is D&D. There are dead gods you can get powers from in D&D. Well, there were in 3rd edition. No, 4th. Oh, sorry. But my lore, I think, comes from the 3rd edition stuff.
The power of healing doesn't sound like it comes from a dead god, though.
I don't know. Again, it's the element that I'm pointing it out, and now I'm connecting it to the Carla thing. So I don't know.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to address that. I don't remember. I really don't remember.
I'm very surprised that this is only like a 12-episode anime. So,
well, yeah. Well, maybe it'll come up.
DM must have sped through the campaign.
Really.
All right. Gim asks, "What good are books to you?" when talking to Slane, which seems like an odd thing to say in regards to a mage that's implied to be studying magic. almost the sort of thing you'd imply to a character who was illiterate or blind. Slain is an odd character. His ears are sometimes rounded like a human character's and sometimes tipped like the dwarves or elves. Also, he invokes the creator in some spells like our human priest, and spirits in other spells like our elf does. Mostly I'm leaning into what good are books to you.
Do you think
He's not a mage, he's actually casting cleric spells and druid spells.
no, but it still could be a book of prayers.
Do you think you need a book of prayers to cast cleric spells?
Well, if it's that's the thing, we don't know how that magic worked that he has.
Well,
So
we can
assuming
infer. We can infer based on how D&D works.
yeah, but we can also infer the fact that maybe in this sense that if it's either prayer or maybe even history of religious artifacts or even magical stuff, I don't know. I don't know. Or could it be that maybe this particular line could have been lost in translation?
I don't know. Well, the element is that I rewatched all of this in English, but I still have the subtitles on. So the subtitles should be being translated from the original Japanese, and I'm also listening to it for changes in the English.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. If the entire line is itself just a mistranslation, then I've got nothing from it. However, there's so much to read into it just on what it might mean. Again, what do books mean to you? Well, then it implies that he's not actually a mage, as a cleric. That would explain why all of his spells invoke the creator or spirits. Now, if he's, say, a blind wizard who's already studied all the spells and is just remembering them, that would imply something else. Like,
I don't think they implied that before. I mean, unless that's what we're getting out of this, and this is what
They don't imply it. I'm just throwing it out there because, like, what do books mean? Like, if I said, what do books mean to you? What am I implying about you? Like,
yeah,
are you
really,
too
yeah,
stupid to understand books? Is that the implication? Are you illiterate? Are you blind? Do you
or
not
could it
need
be
books?
that maybe he's powerful at a level that he doesn't need any more books?
Well,
Maybe the
that's what I'm
dwarf is
saying.
actually there's a lot to be thinking. There's a lot to get from this. Yeah, from that one line. And it'd be messed up if it's just that thing that was lost in translation. But yeah, interesting because I don't think, again, going back to what I said earlier, it may be that maybe he does need it, but it's just a book of prayer. But then why would the dwarf say that?
Well, because if it is a book of prayer, again, we know clerics D&D do not need a
No, just the
grimoire
whole
or
thing.
anything. Yeah.
Just,
So even if it was that would still be the implication you don't need that. But it would also then imply that he's not casting mage magic or wizardry or whatever you want to call it. That he's just casting or invoking the gods, the same as Ito.
Yeah, he's invoking something either holy or unholy. He's not invoking an arcana type of thing at this moment,
Sorry, it occurs to me, now that I'm just conspiracy theorying everything, Ito doesn't say anything about this. So, the implication then being that if Slain is taught in all of this, then what if he is taught in all of this from the other side? Ito, practitioner of Phallus, or Noviate, rather, of Valis, and Slain, practitioner of Phalaris, the god of darkness. I mean, his name is Slain. This is like one of those things he reaches into the show and he turns out to be a bad guy. He's, his fucking name is Slain. Slain, like the god of darkness was slain.
We should have known that from the get-go.
Yeah, it just feels like one of those things. All right, you were right about Slain being part of the village. I guess in our reaction, I just completely forgot about the part where the mayor of the town shows up.
Yeah.
All right. We hear from a memory of Parnes that his father was a holy knight of Valis. We also know he was of the village from episode 2 and served King Fawn in episode 1. Episode 1 also indicates that Valis is the last stronghold against Marmo. So all pieces together, Parn's home is in Valis, which is ruled by King Fan, leaving me to question where King Kashu is the ruler of. And of course, I already told you in my board notes, I think he is the ruler of Canaan, which, by the time we saw him in the prologue, has already fallen to Marmo.
Okay, yeah. I have information on Cashew, but I don't think the information I have here, we might not have gotten it just yet.
We've only seen him in the prologue.
Yeah.
And for a background where he's standing in the background and the moment he walks up to King Fan.
Yeah.
And I think it at least says something about Theseus.
Yeah, I have information on him, but there's nothing you should hear right now.
I mean, we can infer some things about him, like he should be a learned man, because that's the one thing we keep talking about Canaan, is that they value scholars more than they do warriors, and that was the impetus of the difference between the normal Canaan citizen and that outpost of people that we'd seen before.
Well, the way he's presented, there's definitely like a partnership.
Actually, sorry,
between.
I've got that entirely backwards. Just want to correct that real quick. That's not it was Alania that is full of scholars and not normally fighters. Now it was the difference because Jebra comes from Alania, and that's what they made the comments about. So thinking that Kashu might be a scholar, wipe that from the board. Wipe that from your thoughts. That's not correct at all. I was just looking at it, and it's like, wait a second. Yellow stands for Alania. They said that about Alania, not Canaan. I have no idea what Canaan's about.
Well, like I said, I got stuff on here on Cashew, but I don't think it's gonna do it won't be fair to you to know what I got here. But the way to present them, though, that they're definitely he's definitely pals with the king. It was King Farn, is it? And I mean, I don't want to give you again, like I said, anything that I have here that might be throwing you off, but he will come into play more. You see, we'll find out where he's from.
All right. Let's see. Had the goblins not gone on a war march to kill everyone in the village, Parn and Ito certainly would have died. Seeing how many goblins attacked the village and how bad Parn turned out to be at fighting, they were running headfirst into a slaughter in that goblin cave.
Yep. Yeah, and again, it shows. I still think it's a reflection of what Parn has because of his background, and I think he's searching for redemption for his father.
I mean, it doesn't look great for Eto either.
And he doesn't go about it the right way. You know, he's too rash, and I mean, the village was practically gone because of him.
Arguable?
No, because they were ready. They were getting ready to burn that place down.
Well, the idea is that, according to Zacht, that they would not have gone on the march if you just run away. Like, the agreement has been apparently just don't kill them, and that killing them inspired all this.
Yeah. Well, again, but he's not going to follow those rules because he feels like he has to do something.
Again, though, Eto also right there.
Yeah, but they're both young, so yeah.
Parn pulling the old burn your house down to ensure you aren't tempted to turn back. I know that's a real Cortez move, but I think the more modern anime parlance would be to reference Full Metal Alchemist. In Parn's case, it makes less sense. The mayor came up with this as a thing to not have to banish Parn by sending him out to investigate the awakening darkness in the land of Lodoss, the mayor says, which in some aspects has the expectation of return. Plus, 2 of his compatriots still live here, so at some point they might expect to go home.
Yeah, that was, again, but we've been seeing nothing but brash decisions from him from the very get-go. And that's adding to the fuel, no pun intended, to what he's been doing the entire time, especially in that episode. He doesn't think. The last thing he does is think.
But, just the aspect of burn my house down. You guys ready to go? We're coming back.
I couldn't imagine. I was like, what are you doing? What the heck? Smack him in the back of the head. I'm not going nowhere.
Again, it's just like, like the Cortez thing. Like if Cortez burnt down one ship, we got the other. No, it's fine. I'm not going home. All right. Episode 2 narrator. Episode 2 narrator says, "They know not of the darkness that lies sleeping in the lowest depths of Lodoss." As a reminder, Wart and Carla were talking about the fight at the bottom of the labyrinth. So what I have to figure is being referenced by depths.
What do you mean?
The narrator references the darkness that lies sleeping in the lowest depths of Lodoss.
So you think they're referring to what we saw in the prologue?
Well, not that. Wart and Carla talk about the fight at the bottom of the labyrinth. The bottom of the labyrinth. The depths of Lodoss. These are probably the same thing.
You think they're referring to some type of underworld, or you think that there is
a labyrinth at the very bottom of Lodoss, an island that the mythos of their own creation indicates is an artificial thing broken off of the mainland? And not for nothing, I have read World's Largest Dungeon, so concept is not foreign to me.
Okay. But what you're referring to, it have to be, you think it's either, that could be either a creature, maybe protecting something, maybe, there, or it could be maybe the...
I mean, it is a creature that lies sleeping, obviously, since the last 6 adventurers
but
dealt
do you
with
think
it.
you're referring to a dragon, or do you think you're referring to maybe a god? Because we watched the first episode. There's a labyrinth and there's a dragon involved there. I'm wondering if that's maybe they did that to show that maybe this a creature of that equivalent or worse, or are they referring to something darker, more menacing that can be cataclysmic?
Ray, I can't help but notice your character is going further and further closer to Carla.
I thought you know, because I'm looking at all this stuff.
Yes.
That's your fault. You want to look at you read whatever you want to read into what I'm looking at. Carla.
I'm saying the same with the same.
We're talking about Carla and Wart.
With the same,
I'm moving the notes where I have them both in my vision.
With the same eye for detail that I pointed out everything else that I've talked about before. We had this whole thing about Carla's being possessed by something in the locket or the circlet rather. And now you're like, you think it's a god? And we even talked about maybe it's one of the gods that we thought was dead is in the circlet. And you're like, is it a god that's asleep? And your cursor's getting closer to Carla.
You're reading too much into it because you're talking about the discussion of Carla and Wart. And my mouse is going to the people we're talking about who's bringing that conversation. If you want to take it that way, that's on you, my brother.
Yes.
Then you take it that way you want.
Forbid that I read into the thoughts of the person who knows how the show ends.
I will continue doing what I'm doing over here. I'm going to keep my mouth between Wart and Carla.
Instead of it directly next to Carla like it was moments ago.
No, I think you read... Well, listen, you know what? Let me go right back to what I had. And now you're making me self-conscious about what I was doing. I was paying attention. I'm also thinking about what you're saying. And at the same time, the conversation these two are having... And why would she bring that up to him? You know, if you are assuming that I'm saying that Carla is a god or something like that, then you can assume that all you want. I'm trying to tell you that why would she bring that up? And I have my finger, my hand on her because I'm thinking about what you're saying. It's coming from her.
Because she's manipulating.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's manipulating to try and get them down there to wake the thing up.
You think so?
That seems clear to me. Again, by storytelling tropes. Like I'm reading into past stories to say, why would this thing happen? Why would the bad guy try to get a group of heroes to go down and defeat a bad thing? Oh, because they can't, or they needs to be awoken, or it requires a sacrifice. Like, there's reasons this has been done in previous stories.
But she was also looking like she was also influencing
Wart?
When she appeared, not Wart.
Emperor
Beld?
Yeah, of course.
You know?
Well, he has to, probably, because Beld's an outside influence, and she has to get all outside influences into order. I have another note about Carla and her interactions with a different character on the Marmo side. So, Carla comes to offer her assistance to Dark Emperor Beld, but the camera really focuses on the stare down between her and Ashram. One I'd almost describe as a knowing look, like these two are previously connected in some way.
Okay. They might be. They may not be. They might be a rival thing going on, or maybe she might think that he might be an obstacle in her way. You might have to deal with her. Might have to deal with him later. Or
if that was the case, why him and not the other guy?
Well, because maybe she has him under control, and this one not yet. You know, maybe she has not been able to get to him yet. Because when he didn't seem to be happy to see her.
That's what I'm saying. It was a knowing look, like they know each other. And you're indicating that maybe she's got the other guy under control. Well, then why not stare down Beld? Why Ashram?
Because again, I really think that there might be a rivalry. They could be either two things. They have a rivalry going on, right? Or a bad situation where they don't trust each other, or they have a plan.
Yeah, could be any of those. I'm not disagreeing. I just don't have any idea. That's why my note stops there, because I don't have any further ideas. Let's see. Marmo is mentioned to be an island south of Lodoss, and much like Lodoss, with a negative title. And as a reminder, Lodoss, the accursed island, Marmo, the dark island. I wonder if it was also a part of the creation mythos, or if it was an existing evil island before Lodoss got chopped off of Alicrast. Or Alicrast.
Do you think, could it be dark because it's aesthetic? You have the Dark Emperor, you have the Black Knight.
Well, I mean, it's clearly an aesthetic that they've adopted.
But I wonder but it makes you wonder if maybe there's an order or something that they call themselves dark, as opposed to the island itself being a bleak place.
I legitimately have no idea. It feels like it's one of those uninspired D&D campaign things.
Mm-hmm.
All of our bad guys come from this bad place, which they all call themselves dark, and they wear dark stuff. You know, I can tell he's the Black Knight. He's wearing all black.
Yeah. It's pretty obvious.
His hair is black. His eyes are black.
It's very cliche in terms of the good guys and the bad guys, if they want to go that way. They are portrayed all in black, as you see everybody who's the good guys seems to be mostly all in white, or at least the contrast in colors.
Even Zach, the asshole villager, is kind of wearing dark colors.
See, so anybody they don't like.
I'm just saying that's why it would be fun for me if it turns out that Carla was actually being possessed by, the God of Light, and the God of Light turned out to be the bad one, because it'd be not a fun twist, but it'd be a twist at the very least.
Gotcha.
As per the quote from episode 1, Kanan and Alania have already fallen to the Marmo forces. Valis is our last stronghold. Well, in episode 3, we got to see the Alanian fortress Mice, and Jebra had apparently just come back from Alan, which I guess is still a place that exists. Then we see Beld at the edge of some castle/encampment called Shining Hill, where his other commander states that the conquest there will bring all of Canaan under his control, showing how much further into the journey we have to go to catch up with the prologue.
Yeah.
And let's see, they seem a bit on the nose to be having the dark-themed people worshipping Phalaris, and all of the good guys praising Phallus. I hope we get introduced to some more people in the gray spectrum to balance it all out. At the very least, Beld is more of a Conan type, eschewing the strength of a god, in this case, I suppose, to claim it for himself. Sorry, it looked like he had a thought there, so I'll just give it a minute.
No. Because I'm thinking, and I'm also fighting an internal battle if what I'm about to say is a spoiler or not. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I might have to be quiet for a while, a couple times. If you see that action, don't worry about talking over me.
Oh, don't worry. I'll just automatically assume that I'm right.
Okay.
You're being quiet because I'm too right.
You're reading me way too much, and I between me and my mouse being pointed somewhere, I think you're.
Everything is a clue, Ray. Everything is a clue.
I think you want me to give you the clues,
Oh, I totally don't. I totally don't want you to spoil anything. Well, my final note, then. According to Woodchuck, the pecking order of soldiers is Valis, Kanan, Alania. Which I guess means if you were to include Marmo in the lineup, as far as we know, it would be Valis, Marmo, Kanan, Alania.
Now he put them in order of what?
Strength of soldiers.
Oh, strength of soldiers. Well, I can see that, especially if Marmo is trying to expand, and it seems that way. And they got these monsters.
Well, we know from the prologue that Marmo defeats Kanan and Alania, so Marmo has to be stronger than them. And he's implying that Valis has the strongest knights. And I have to think that this is going to be one of those shows where good wins over evil, so implying that Valis will be stronger than Marmo. So Valis, Marmo, Kanan, Alania. Also, he implies that Kanan is stronger than Alania. So.
I hate these names.
Which ones?
Marmo's an awful name for a country.
I'm getting used to it.
Marmo sounds like food. Like it's some type of ingredient to my sandwich. Can I get some Marmo with that? Can you add a little bit Marmo on my ham sandwich?
It sounds like a child's nickname for a marshmallow.
That too. Like Valis sounds, good. Alania sounds good. Kanan sounds good. Marmo.
Well, Valis has its own specific problem. Valis is a country name, but there's also a god named Phallus with an F.
Yeah. Yeah. The naming was a little challenging here.
Well, that's saying Marmo doesn't sound like anything in the show at the very least. Also, they're trying to make it sound other, so.
But I don't like it. It's weird.
Well, at least your character doesn't come from there. I'm Ashram from Marmo. All right, well, that's the end of the notes. Anything, or at least my notes, anything else you want to bring up before we roll on in?
I think we've covered quite a bit here.
All right, that said, nothing left to do but hop on into it.
But before we get started,
make sure that you hit the like button,
hit that subscribe button,
comment down below to feed that algorithm.
On top of all that, if you want to watch more shows like this, unfiltered,
uncensored,
and uncut,
as well as some early access stuff,
you can check it out over on the Patreon.
It's just $5 a month, but hey, no pressure.
There's zero pressure in order to do that. It's just a little bit of extra support, and it would be greatly appreciated.
Who would have guessed?
光と闇、対極の神々が起こした戦いは大地母神マーファと邪神カー
Yeah, when I said I was going to keep track of the god stuff, I don't know. For some reason, I thought in my head there was going to be more.
No,
but I'm glad you did because we got the information about Ito.
Well, no, I meant, I would have kept track of that regardless of the god stuff. I meant on the board where I had the 4 gods and that they're all dead. So it's like, it really came to nothing. 2 gods fought the other 2 gods and they're all dead. And most now, I think I'm just keeping track of which spirits get invoked.
Yes.
I gotta say, also not a big fan of the opening song.
I think this is the first opening song that I've heard now of this in English. Like the one I had before was not in English. This episode's coming out in English.
I have no thoughts about that.
I tell you what, it sounds awful compared to the original.
Well, no, I'm saying that I have no thoughts about the idea that the opening may have been changed in any way. Obviously, whatever you watched it in that, but
well, right now, you hear it in English or you hear it in Japanese?
I'm hearing it in Japanese.
Yeah, I'm hearing it in English.
Did you not change your subtitle? You change your audio to Japanese?
Because last week, or when we last reacted, it wasn't in English. It was in Japanese. The opening song.
No, I'm saying it's still in Japanese.
Well, mine's in English.
Well, if you hear all the characters in English, then you haven't changed your audio. Was that the subtle reach down to grab the mouse to,
No, it's my audio, my soundboard.
Okay. So this is Alanya. Okay, yep, I was right. They're the ones that had that weird hat.
Mm.
I guess otherwise known as a beret.
要するにだんまりを決め込もうって魂胆じゃねえか。そんな、それじゃあマイス砦は何のために全滅したんだ。砦一つで済めばよい。パン、それがアラニア国王カドモス7世陛下の。
More proof that Kashu might be Kanan.
答えろよ。
Bastard.
I mean, worse yet, we know that Parn probably can't beat that guy.
暗黒の島マーモの皇帝ベルドがロードス制覇に乗り出したという知らせは大陸全土に響き渡った。事実、カノン攻略が
I was just about to say, the fact that Emperor Beld was at the fields outside of Kanan implies that
死者を派遣する祭壇を下した。
Kanan would have fought Phil first.
決して楽な旅ではないが、王女としての使命を立派に果たしてきてくれるとわしは信じている。
必ずやアラニアのカドモス陛下に父上のお心お伝えしてまいります。
娘を、いや、王女を。
I mean, I don't understand why there's any need to separate those two terms. The princess is your daughter, my lord.
いい加減国中に触れを出したらいかがですかな、カノン。
Well, am I wrong?
そうすれば無駄な血を流さずに済みますぞ。誰が魔物の手先になる。たとえ王家が滅びようと、カノンの民はマーモに屈せず。
Okay, I'm gonna guess now that Kashu is either his son or actually a guy from the mainland.
Yep.
Definitely not Kashu, though, not unless he bulks up some.
これでロードスの東は陛下の手の内かと。
Okay, more info. Kanan is to the east.
吉報が届くには早すぎましょう。がご心配なされますが、アラニアなぞ物の数では。
Unfortunately, that doesn't matter to us. We know from the prologue they fall.
動くか。
お任せを。
I guess also implying that they captured the princess.
油断のならぬ女でございます。
使えるうちは使う。
That's what they all say.
Well, you know, to what I was talking about, the heroes possibly just being used by her too.
もういつまで怒ってるつもり？
別に怒ってやしない。
いいんですか？そのまま行けば帰らずの森ですよ。
よよ、まさかそこを通ろうってんじゃねえだろうな。
Well, the GM set up the encounter, so I guess we have to.
バリスに行く。アラニアはダメでも、バリスのファン王なら必ず立ち上がるさ。共に戦おうとでも言うのか？ お前の腕では門番にすらなれんさ。キム。
Just giving him a lot of shit for no reason, bro.
Also, imagine this happening in a D&D game. Did Gim come in at like 10th level? Like, what happened here?
Yeah, really.
Karn is clearly a fighter. So how is he so bad? I'm gonna write him in the story as bad, even though I just rolled ones all the time.
It could be that. It could be he just rolled a bunch of runs.
Oh, Marmo.
誰かなんとか言ってやってくれよ。無理にとは言わない。俺の進む道にみんなを巻き込むつもりはないんだ。
行きましょう。行きましょうよ。帰らずの森。
Okay, so it's Deedlit's time to interject.
Yeah, but look how now she's willing to do this, as opposed to what we mentioned earlier of her hesitation going into a labyrinth.
Well, I was just imagining the last time we had to stop Parn from doing something against his own self-interest. Gim just punched him in the gut and carried him off.
Yeah, really. But do you think that Pawn is rubbing off on them, though?
I mean, again, that's my problem with what I said about the prologue, where Parn says, just leave then. I don't need you. I don't care if you leave.
Yeah.
It's like, what development happens between this, Parn rubbing off on them, as you say, and there, where he doesn't care if they're here or not?
驚いたり恐れたり怒ったり悩んだりそういった強い感情は忘れて特に感情の爆発は周りの木々に悪影響を与えるわ
The surprise and emotion?
ドワーフは心配ないわよね悩みなんかあるほど繊細にできていないものね
That's racist.
Is it? I guess it is.
Okay.
I guess even saying a positive racial stereotype is still a racial stereotype, right? Like all Asians are good at math. It's still a racial stereotype. It's not it's not good.
This is a Lord of the Forest. I don't know if that's a god or just a spirit.
I mean, for me, it'd be easier if they like named them. I could put them on the board real easy.
Yeah.
Again, I'm still hung up on the whole surprise thing. You gave up on surprise. Along with all the other ones, though, surprise. A jump scare is surprise. Do you just die if you get jump scared in the forest of no return?
Well, do you remember? Well, I'll say that after. Let's see what happens after. Like, I have my thoughts about this afterwards. After they go through this.
すでに失われた世界だと思っていました。
さあ、ぐずぐずしてられないわ。急ぐのよ。
どういうことなんだ？
妖精界では時間は我々の世界よりもゆっくりと進むのです。早くここから抜け出さないと我々はどんどん年を取ってしまう。
How's that? What? Time works more slowly here. We'll start to age if we don't leave. Wouldn't we not age?
急ぐとしましょう。
そういうことだな。
The way that was put to me, I would think if we spent a long time here, we'd go back into the real world and be like 100 years after.
That's what it sounded like.
Also, you just expressed surprise. You should be dead. Who was the Greek sailor that had to be tied to the mast of his ship as they were passing by?
I don't know.
When they were going by the under the sirens?
がらんことに惑わされおってからに。
怒鳴らないで。この場所の樹木は強い感情に反応。
Guys, stop fucking feeling stuff. Also, isn't she getting angry at them?
Which is an emotion.
Yeah, it's all hypocrisy. Oh wait, is he in love with her? I have to fucking change that on the board. Oh wait, what the hell is this? Why was he seeing the circlet? Surprise! It's an emotion apparently, but also one you can't feel. My point about the siren thing is that that's how she should have led them through here. Put a blindfold on, plug your ears. I'll tie a rope to all of you and we'll get out.
It reminds me a bit. Remember, I don't know if you've seen the Neverending Story. Remember that Forest of Sorrow, the March of Zoro, and how you lost the
Everyone
horse?
knows the name Artax.
Yeah, you know
Some
what I mean?
people
So,
think the kid's name is Artax for some reason.
so that's what I was taking from that, because it made me think about the Forest of Fangorn too, Fangorn Forest, but it's not. That's different. That's the Forest of the emotions.
I'm assuming this is the place they just left. The place that said the loss of one fortress is acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what he was sieging this place.
Seemed a bit unnecessary.
大きなお世話だ。それよりバリスの方はどうした？
思いもかけず早耳だ。
マーモの人間は
It's also the element that she's not aging.
につながることをよく知っている。
Correct.
ご心配なく。その言葉を聞くために立
She could be dead. Dead body animated by the circlet.
Should I move my mouse around to give you some clues? You see, there's an animosity. I don't see. That's what I'm saying. So like you mentioned earlier, they know each other.
You can't point out from an episode we're now watching. You see, proof of everything I said before.
Everything you said, everything I said before. See, there's an animosity.
I'm just saying, I'm indicated from one scene, one look in one scene. You can't use new information against me.
But I'm saying you're correct in that. So the fact that they didn't know each other beforehand.
Oh, yeah, I fucked that up. I thought he was looking at the priestess. He was looking at the girl he's looking for.
Yep.
I thought he was seeing the priestess in danger, and it's like indicating a love relationship between those two. The goddess of light. No, the goddess of creation. Sorry, goddess of creation.
7年前鉱山の事故で大怪我をしたわしの看病でニースが神殿を留守にしている時、娘のレイリアはわしの怪我を心配して祈りを捧げておってくれた。
Also, oddly, looks just as old as her mother does. Well, there's the circlet that what's-her-name's wearing. And a face that looks exactly like the goddess of darkness. I made a board. I've seen their face. The princess? Yep, the princess.
Yep.
Also, at best, at this level of the adventure, he can only cast so many fireballs per day.
アラニアはすでに落ちた。恐れることはない。私はそなたに別の役目を担ってもらおうと思っているだけなの。
Well, I said they would capture her, and they did.
そなたが消えればお父上ファンはさぞや奮起してくださるだろう。
I have to imagine they survived 2 fireballs. Or at least the horse did.
And who's catching them?
Could be delayed fireball, that's a spell.
That could be.
It's just the idea that how did they fall so far back? The idea is that they must have been hit by 1 fireball, got back on their horse, and then raced to catch up.
He's almost playing. I mean, I play with people D&D where they played a paladin, that lawful good but to a T.
I've done that once. Guys, we can't leave until we bury all the bodies.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So that's what it feels like.
It's lawful stupid.
But he's also unreasonable.
Well, I did it in 1st edition, where if you broke any rule, you were out. And you know how hard it is to roll up a paladin? Especially on random roll rules. Bet it's gonna be a dark elf. Oh, never mind. Okay, so sorcerer, not wizard. Meaning he doesn't need books. Now cast heat metal. That'll really fuck him up. Also, pointedly, Gim, the one not here, who also knows what the circlet looks like. Yeah, there we go. Spirit of Water named.
Awesome. I love how that came out. She is powerful as fuck. My goodness.
There we go. Finally. I'm gonna assume he's wrong. Because that would imply that Lelia was a member of the adventuring party. This is a fucking big tree. The carriage was below it. The carriage looked like a toy compared to the tree.
What do you mean that we implied that?
Carla is implied to be part of Wart's adventuring party, according to the conversation in the prologue. If it actually is Lelia, as per Gim's vision, then that would imply that Lelia was a member of the adventuring party, and that Carla is Lelia. So I'm assuming he's wrong, and his vision is incorrect. Go ahead, tell me that she's camouflaged or some... It's actually Carla's multiple people inhabiting multiple bodies.
At this point, I don't think it's a spoiler. That's her.
What do you mean that's her? Carla is Lelia?
That's Lelia, but the body of Lelia is not Carla.
The Marmo Dragon. Okay, so this guy's around because he can control a dragon.
That's pretty OP.
Sorry, it was the other way around.
Yeah, I was about to say, wait a minute.
The goddess of destruction. As per my whole labyrinth in the depths thing.
フィアンナ王女を救った俺たちがファン王との謁見を許されている頃、ネッサの国フレイムより若き傭兵王カシュンがバリスを目指し馬を飛ばす。
What?
マーモの進行は食い止められる。
King is a nickname? What the? Or the title he gave himself?
第5話砂漠の王。ロードスの平和は俺が守る。
Alright, pretty good episode, but filled with disappointments to my notes. Okay, back to the Lelia thing.
Okay, yes.
Carla is implied to be a member of Wart's adventuring party.
Correct.
Wart, who fucking knows Carla, says this is Carla. So, Gim running up on Carla and having a vision of Lelia, who we do know went missing, and the whole circlet thing was also in that vision, says Carla is Lelia. Which would then, A equals B, B equals C, means that Carla is Lelia.
Correct. Carla is Lelia, but Lelia is not the original body of Carla.
Wait. I need a moment to wrap my head around this. Carla is Lelia. That's something you just said. But Lelia is not the original body of... Repeat that one more time for me?
The current form that Carla is appearing is not her original form. She has taken over Layla.
Oh, you're saying she's done an Orochimaru. I got it.
And then that circlet is behind all that.
Wait,
That's
so
how when
you're
he's
saying that Wart identified Carla outside of that being Carla?
Yeah, that part may be...
That doesn't make any sense.
Because like she known that he could do that, that she could do that before. Maybe he's aware of that. Or
well, no,
I don't
because
know
the
what...
idea is that should be... God, let me go back to the board real quick, because I need names. I'm going to get these wrong, go off the top of my own head. The implication in my head is that is Cardis in the circlet. So... Is it Cardis? Yeah, it has to be the only one I have an image of. God, I used the worst image of Marfa. That has to be Cardis in the circlet. So it couldn't be Carla.
What is Carla? I didn't say Carla in the head thing. I said the head thing had...
You said the original body was Carla.
Whatever, how the circlet is working is beyond me. But definitely the person who's actually manipulating the body of Layla is Carla.
Well, this is a spoiler.
No, he said it there.
No, I don't think that... Well, maybe this is something that I would have had to go back for my notes on, but I don't think this is something I would have put together. It seems very clear to me that if left to my own devices, I would think that Gim was just wrong. Okay. You know, unless I got more information. Because to me...
When he saw that's why he saw the circlet when he saw her vision in the forest.
In the vision in the forest, no, because I wouldn't have... See, here's the thing. There's a difference between what I might come up with in notes and what I might come up with in the moment. In the moment now, not in the future, where, I'm going to rewatch all this stuff. In the now, I'm leaning more on when Gim describes what is going on with him, which is to say his story about Nis helping tend to his wounds and Lelia then praying for his wounds. And then we get the vision of, again, what looks like Cardis, the ghost form, whatever, of Cardis, and then the circlet, implying that Cardis assaults Lelia. And I know that is the point where you might say, okay, that's where the circlet goes on Lelia, and Lelia becomes Carla. But then I would suspect, at worst, that Carla is Lelia vis-a-vis there is no Carla. The Cardis on Lelia's head form is a third person they just made up called Carla, versus Carla, an actual person in Wart's party who Wart identifies, you are Carla. So at no point would I think, oh, clearly what happened here is that Carla took over a thing, then put that mind and you know World of Warcraft lore.
Mm-hmm.
You're
No, not really.
Okay, well, I'm not super familiar, but there is a orc warlock who basically sells his soul over to sorry, now I'm forgetting all the names of everybody. He sells his soul basically, and then he betrays everyone, and then he gets his soul rent from his body and put into a helmet, which is the same helmet that the Lich King wears. And eventually, he like controls Arthas, which is the human form of the Lich King, for a long time, until then he gets put on that head, and then Arthas and that guy essentially merge their personalities to become one person, which is the Lich King. So here, I would never have suspected, oh, third mystery person I've never heard of or seen before is actually merged with this other person to form this third party, which is also a third person on the head of the circlet.
The third person, okay. We saw that, first of all, we know that Gim has been with this girl since she was born. He knows her. From very little, he knows her. So the fact that he recognized her in that very image, and then she's appearing right in front of him again, shows that to me, I don't think that was a spoiler at all. I think the show itself shows that to you.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not attacking you for thinking that you spoiled anything. I'm not attacking you for that. So don't like feel like you need to be on the defensive about that. I just think that it's not something that I would have known what you're saying, or rather something I don't think I would have come to in the now. Again, in the now,
got you.
Future me, the same person who you just heard talk over like an hour's worth of notes might come to something, but the me right now going over like 3 points of information does not see that.
Gotcha.
Also, I don't think he mentioned here in this episode that he's known her all her life.
No, but he says that in the beginning when the priest sends him out for her.
Right.
That would imply that he'd known her all his life.
I don't think so. He's known Nice for some time, apparently, that they have some sort of predisposition or existing relationship. There's nothing saying that I've known Lelia since she was born. He just says the daughter of Nice.
I know, but he didn't say it word for word, but you implied that he's been working for her for so long. He's getting old for what he's doing. She's pretty young for the most part. That's what I'm implying.
I got no implication.
Show, but that's what I got out of it.
I got no implication about how long that he's been doing anything for her.
Okay.
If they said it, it's not one of the things that stuck to me. Like I said, in regards to this specific situation, I'm stuck with the Wart recognizes Carla, and then Gim recognizes Lelia. And these two things stand exactly opposed in my head. I cannot fathom putting them together unless the implication is that Carla was always Lelia, which doesn't seem to work to the background information of Nice and quite possibly Wart. Because my problem with the Wart conversation is that Wart seemed to be indicating that he was going to defend Carla, and before he indicates that Carla was a member of the party, I was thinking, oh, Carla was like a princess or something, and he was the hero to rescue her. But then the indication is they're members of the same party, in which case, okay, just inter-party love relationship thing going on. And then now this. And that seems to indicate to me different characters. Like, in the moment, I would think, oh, okay, there's just multiple people that look the same wandering around with circlets.
Gotcha. Well, I have another question, actually. This is a little bit different from here. With Carla's appearance, how do you feel about the idea that she showed up to the princess and she is trying to get the King Parn, to join the fight? that we kidnap you,
Well, like I said,
this will encourage you.
we had the conversation during the notes, the manipulation.
Yeah.
But when I said,
But my question is, what do you think she's trying to gain?
Well, I very specifically, I think we talked about this during the notes, that they're manipulating them to go down into the depths to whatever's sleeping beneath. Sorry, other anime's names are in my head. I would say Macross. Lodoss.
But what would that have to do with the king getting into battling?
Oh, it's one of those like 4D chess manipulation things. They get the king to do this so that the king sends an adventuring party, probably because that's what happened to the last adventuring party.
Okay.
The king is going to be too busy fighting Marmo to handle this other big threat. So we need to get the king involved so the king can then send an adventuring party like he did last time. So whatever's down there gets its sacrifice or whatever the reason is to trick a group of people to go down there.
Sounds good.
You know, unless I'm completely wrong, in which case, and Carla actually is the goddess of creation, and in which case she's sending an adventuring party down there to handle the things. You know, this is a Doctor Strange situation.
Mm.
The only way to win is for the worst timeline to happen.
Okay.
I mean, it always happens. That something's always going to throw me at some point.
We'll eventually get to it, you know. But okay.
All
excellent.
right.
Love the episode though. The episode was really good. I do like this episode. Of the 4 we've seen in total, right, this is one of the ones I think moved the needle a little bit more than the other ones in terms of moving the story along.
But what does Theseus have to do with anything? No, it's just your mouse is there. It's like, what do you?
No, really, my mouse. I have it on my PowerPoint. Is it on the thing?
On the board, your mouse is at Theseus. It's like, what does Theseus have to do with this Carla conversation?
Let me put my mouse over here.
Maybe Theseus is actually Lelia's father. That would be the thing, right? There's actually a connection there that actually turns out to be true. Ness and Theseus had a child together, and it's Lelia, and that's why he actually got kicked out of the Holy Knights Order. And all of this inspired by your mouse just randomly being on the board in a position.
That will be funny. Turns out Parn's a bastard too. Where we at it?
Well, no, Parn wouldn't be a bastard. He knows his father. Lelia would be the bastard. Is there a woman? Is there a word for a woman bastard?
I think
or
it's still bastard.
Is it just bastard? Is it a gender neutral term? Okay.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
That Lelia, I guess, well, there's no conceit that Ness wouldn't have told Lelia who her father was.
Yeah. No, we don't know.
And that Gim is just like standing in. That maybe Gim was actually adventuring with Theseus before, because, you know, he's old hand at this apparently. I would love it. I would love if I was just incidentally right about a whole thing that I came up with because your mouse was on the wrong spot on the board. And you're like, God damn it, he's getting all this shit right. That is fucking insane.
But if Lena's his kid, he left. Parn was young. He was a young boy when he left. She looks about the same age as him.
So, again, Theseus has an affair with the priestess of Marfa, and knights can't do that. Knights are like, oh, spoiler, can't tell you that. Knights are like, knights can't be in relationships or something like that, and that's why he gets kicked out of. Yeah, that's why he gets kicked out of the order, and then he moves into a small little town in the middle of nowhere where he finds someone else he falls in love with and has a kid called Parn.
It'd be funny when you are 100% correct.
I mean, it would be hilarious, all based on, again, your mouse just being in a random position. But yeah, I mean, and final thoughts?
No, I'm looking forward to the other episodes. Like I said before, I think this story moved it. This episode in particular moved a bit of a story a bit more. Because we have, she made an appearance. She appeared now in front of the party. And she appeared super powerful. So now the party knows that she exists. And she's no one to trifle along with, for that matter. Because everything they threw at her, she pretty much blocked everything they threw at her. Everything they threw at her.
They threw one thing at her.
No, didn't the mage try to do something?
No.
Slain?
The moment he came up behind Parn, he got the purple glow, and just he went.
Yeah, you're right.
He went
and
down
she threw
too.
that thing at him. Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right.
I can't remember the name of the water spirit. It's a common water spirit name in like RPGs and whatnot. I just can't remember off the top of my head. Obviously, there will be a image of it on the board later. But no, I mean, this episode is pretty massive for that final reveal.
Yes. I apologize if I spoiled anything.
Well, future me will have a note about it. Like I said, if it's a thing that I don't think I would have put together, then here's the thing. My notes are always going to be from my perspective, and this is my first contact with this show. So my note will still probably reflect what I actually think, even though I have to know that your knowledge is true. So...
Well, again, though, a lot of it I don't remember. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't remember that. This I knew. This part I knew from the get go. And Gim's situation was her. But a lot of things I'm still like, oh, I remember it. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Whatnot, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't remember. What I don't remember is Carla's motivation on why she's doing it. It all leads back to the Lambert, but like I don't remember the concrete how it ended and what she did. What was her main reason for doing all this?
I mean, we still got to get to the party meeting Wart and everything too, and I figure Wart's probably going to be the one that tells us because he's living in a tower on top of a mountain through a dwarven cavern or a dwarven tunnel, so he's put himself out there to not be contactable, and yet he's filled his thing with maps and books and whatnot. So he's probably going to be the guy. Here's what we did. Here's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, we have to find this, and you have to find this magical item, this relic. Something like that, maybe.
It can't be.
It could be something.
It can't be that grand of an adventure because I assume that's going to happen with 6 episodes left to go. Which is going to be, go through the forest of sorrow and then.
Well, Vox Machina did it. I mean, they did the exact same thing.
I didn't watch Vox Machina.
But they did the exact same. They told a major epic story in 12 episodes. So
did they? Didn't there not a season 2 of Vox Machina?
Apiece. Huh?
Is there not a season 2 of Vox Machina?
But a different story.
Is it? Again, I've never seen it. I just assume it's the continuing story.
No, it's not. Well, they're playing off a campaign. Just like this show is based off a D&D campaign, that show is doing the same thing. But they had different story plots in them. So like the first season, it's one giant campaign. The second season had nothing to do with the first season and vice versa. It's a different adventure altogether. So they were able to, I'm trying to say, they were able to fit in an epic story in 12 episodes.
Well, I guess the difference here is translation. And I don't mean like Japanese to English. Yeah. I mean, is it translating a campaign into a recollection novel, into an actual novel, into an anime. And typically there's the manga is in between that, but as we already covered in the notes, that's not where it went. So,
but I also
this is
wonder,
also
though,
early anime.
Well, yeah, it's early anime. At the same time, when did RPGs become a thing in Japan? During this time, did this help spark more players when they watched it? What were they trying to do by showing this to the audience? Just tell a story? Were they trying to introduce the world of D&D to Japan through anime?
Oh, I doubt it. If that was true, we would see the D&D symbol or something on this somewhere.
Well, not D&D, but RPG. Like the fact that this is a game.
Well, you also remember these things are made to make money. So if it was made to introduce RPGs, that they would have been, we're funded by this company that makes RPGs. So this is.
I don't agree with that statement because we had that problem in the 80s watching cartoons and tons of merchandise.
Yeah, exactly.
But did he? Okay,
where's the merchandise? That's what I'm saying.
There's a ton of merchandise of regular Lodoss War in Japan.
Exactly.
Which is an RPG.
They were advertising their own RPG.
But that's what I'm telling you. What was the purpose of what they were trying to do? I'm talking about the way the formula of the story. If it was done the way it is, in trying to introduce fantasy gaming to Japan. Not particularly one item, but the world of gaming, of it being a tabletop game.
I think it would be the height of hubris to think that Japan did not have its own RPGs.
I didn't think that either, but
no, I'm saying that you're saying introducing fantasy RPGs to Japan. I'm saying that I think it would be a very specific type of thinking to say that they didn't have their own already. That they wouldn't need introduction to, that
But
they would
not-
already have.
But if they had it, didn't mean it was popular. Just because they have it doesn't mean it was popular.
Also, I would have to think that
It's like
they would
things like
have
we had
fantasy style stuff as well.
Huh?
I think they would have to have fantasy style of storytelling and animation and movies and stuff of their own. Like, I don't think that Record of the Lodoss War...
This is their own. This is theirs.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think Record of the Lodoss War is the first of its kind of any particular thing.
Okay.
I think it's probably a really good story told in a very specific way, but I don't think it introduces anything to Japan. I mean, again, I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm an expert on anything. I'm saying that it seems to me to think that this would be the first contact of any of these tropes or genres or game systems or anything. Seems like wishful thinking.
I don't know if I agree with you. I don't know if I agree because
You're
just because they may already have it doesn't mean it was popular, and this may have popularized it.
Again, that might just be something to come back for with notes to do a bit of research, assuming I remember.
Yeah. Well, that was episode 4.
Yeah. All right. Well, then once again, I have been Theta. This has been Ray. Check out our nights, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.
See you soon, guys.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another Stone-Faced Reactions. If you have an idea of another video we could go ahead and watch, go ahead and put it in the comments down below and we'll add it to the wheel. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what you thought about this video, what parts you liked. And until then, we'll see you next time. Is this too goofy?